Years ago, Obi had been the happiest man in Umuachala village. His heart belonged to only one woman, Ifeoma. Her laughter was like music that carried across the stream, her eyes as warm as the morning sun. Every villager knew their love was true, for they were inseparable, two young souls who shared dreams of building a home, raising children, and growing old side by side. When they married, it was a celebration the village would never forget. Palm wine flowed, drums thundered, and even the elders admitted that Ifeoma and Obi's union was blessed. But fate is cruel. The very night Ifeoma gave birth, her voice grew weak, her breath shallow. After a painful struggle, she brought forth a baby girl. The midwives placed the infant in her arms, and Ifeoma with trembling lips whispered, "Her name is Adaobi, my crown jewel." She smiled faintly, kissed the child, and then her hand fell limp. Obi's world collapsed that night, but from the ashes of grief, love found another form. All the devotion he had for his wife, he poured into Adaobi. He saw before his wife's lifeless body, "Ifeoma, as long as I live, our daughter will never lack love. I will raise her as we planned." Yet Obi was a man and a farmer with little knowledge of raising an infant. He needed help, and quickly. That was when Nena entered his life. Nena had once been Ifeoma's close friend. Unknown to everyone, she had always harbored feelings for Obi, hiding them beneath smiles and friendship. When Obi, in his desperation, asked her hand in marriage, she agreed immediately, though not for love of Adaobi. In her heart, she believed she could replace Ifeoma, claim Obi's love for herself, and bury the shadow of the woman who haunted her. But Obi never gave her the love she craved. His heart was sealed, given entirely to his late wife and their daughter. Though Nena bore him children, a daughter, Ngozi, and a son, Emeka, Obi's affection for Adaobi never dimmed. She was his pride, his joy, his reason to live. As the years passed, the differences between the children became clear. Adaobi grew into a striking young woman. At 20, her beauty was radiant, effortless, the kind that seemed blessed by the gods. But she was not only beautiful, she was intelligent, hardworking, and kind. She helped the women at the stream, tutored younger children in the evenings, and managed her father's household with grace. Everywhere she went, she left whispers of admiration. Nena's children, however, were different. Ngozi, her 19-year-old daughter, was beautiful in her own right, but her beauty was vain. She spent her days before mirrors, oiling her skin, painting her lips, and chasing idle gossip. She cared little for school, often abandoning her books for frivolous adventures. Emeka, the younger son, was 15 and frail. Since childhood, he had suffered from a mysterious illness that left him weak and often bedridden. Nena doted on him, but his condition weighed heavily on her. In her bitterness, she began to believe Adaobi was the cause of her misfortune. "It is her star," Nena would mutter to herself. "Her destiny overshadows my children. As long as she shines, mine will remain in darkness." This thought festered, poisoning her heart further. The news spread like wildfire through Umuachala. The crown prince had returned from his studies abroad, and he was seeking a wife. To mark the occasion, the elders announced a village dance, a grand gathering where the maidens of Umuachala would showcase their beauty, grace, and character. It was a chance for every young woman to stand before the heir to the throne, and perhaps, with fortune's favor, be chosen. The announcement stirred the hearts of the maidens. Days before the event, they giggled at the stream, practiced their dances in the moonlight, and spent hours preparing their finest wrappers and jewelry. Mothers too were busy themselves with adornments for their daughters, knowing that marriage into royalty could change a family's destiny. In Obi's household, however, a storm brewed. Nena was determined that her own daughter, Ngozi, should be the chosen one. She spared no expense in dressing her. She polished coral beads until they gleamed, wrapped her in the richest fabric, and rubbed her skin with scented oils. Her words were sharp and determined. "Tonight is yours, Ngozi. The prince must see you. He will not even notice Adaobi." When Adaobi heard this, she quietly resigned herself. She had no expectation of attending. She had no ornaments, no costly wrappers, and her stepmother's cold eyes made it clear she was unwelcome. But her father, Obi, would not allow it. "No daughter of mine will hide in the shadows," he said firmly. "You will go, Adaobi. Your mother would have wanted it." And so Adaobi prepared in her own simple way. She tied a modest but neat wrapper around her waist, wove cowries into her thick black hair, and let her natural grace be her adornment. When the night came, the village square glowed with torchlight. Drums thundered, flutes sang, and the air was thick with anticipation. The maidens lined up in their finery, jewels catching the firelight as they prepared to dance before the prince. The crowd swelled with excitement. Elders sat in honor, children perched on rooftops, and the whole village seemed to hold its breath. One by one, the maidens danced. They twirled, stamped, and swayed, each eager to catch the prince's eye. The square erupted with cheers at every graceful move, and mothers whispered prayers that their daughters would be chosen. Then it was Adaobi's turn. She stepped into the arena quietly, almost shyly. Her simple attire stood in contrast to the glittering maidens before her. Some in the crowd murmured, wondering why Obi's daughter was so plainly dressed. Others smirked, expecting her to be overshadowed. But when the drums shifted and Adaobi began to move, the world seemed to pause. Her feet kissed the earth with a rhythm that was not taught but born within her. Her arms flowed like water, her waist swayed with effortless grace, and her smile, gentle, radiant, lit the night like a flame. It was not just a dance, it was as if unseen spirits had joined her, guiding her steps, weaving enchantment into every motion. The crowd fell silent, mesmerized. Even the wind seemed to hush, carrying only the beat of the drums and the sound of Adaobi's feet on the earth. Old men nodded in awe, mothers clasped their hands, and children gazed wide-eyed. But it was the prince who was most captivated. From the moment she stepped into the square, his eyes had fixed on her, and as she moved, he felt as though the ancestors themselves had whispered in his ear, "This is the one." When the last drum beat faded, Adaobi stopped, her chest rising and falling gently. For a heartbeat, silence reigned. Then the square erupted in cheers so loud it seemed the heavens themselves had joined. Prince Kelechi rose to his feet. Tall, regal, and commanding, he raised his hand for silence. Slowly, his gaze swept across the maidens before resting once again on Adaobi. With a voice clear and steady, he declared, "I choose her, Adaobi, daughter of Obi." The village exploded with ululations, clapping, and joyous shouts. Women danced in celebration, men cheered, and Adaobi's friends embraced her with tears of delight. But in the shadows, Nena's face hardened, her heart twisting with rage. For despite her schemes, despite all her ornaments and plans, destiny had spoken, and destiny had chosen Adaobi.
That night, the household was heavy with silence. Obi was overjoyed, praising his daughter. "Ifeoma's spirit must be rejoicing," he said proudly. "Adaobi will be a queen." But Nena seethed. She could not bear it. To her, this was the final insult. Her own daughter Ngozi overlooked in favor of Adaobi, the child who was never hers, the living reminder of the woman she could never replace. "You bewitched him, didn't you?" she spat when she caught Adaobi alone. "Tell me, how did you ensnare the prince?" Adaobi shook her head, tears brimming in her eyes. "Mama, I did nothing. I only danced." "Don't call me Mama." Nena's voice was sharp as a knife. "You are not my blood. You are a curse in this house. My children suffer because of you. Ngozi's foolishness, Emeka's illness, all because your star shines too bright." Adaobi wept silently, but she said nothing. She had learned long ago that words only fueled her stepmother's fire. Nena's jealousy consumed her until it grew into something darker, something dangerous. She began to plot. If Adaobi becomes the prince's wife, my children are finished, she told herself. I must stop this marriage, no matter the cost. She sought out a dibia, a village medicine man feared for his dark powers. Under the cover of night, she whispered her desires. The dibia gave her a calabash filled of charms and a small vial of powder. When you sprinkle this where her feet will step, her beauty will vanish, her health will wither, and the prince will see her no more, the dibia promised. Nena paid him and hurried home, her heart pounding with wicked anticipation. Nena's hands trembled as she scattered the last of the black powder the dibia had prepared for her. Her heart pounded against her chest like a talking drum. She whispered incantations she barely understood, her voice sharp with envy. Let her beauty fade, let her star dim, let her never become queen. She glanced over her shoulder, making sure no one was watching, then hurried away, her wrapper brushing against the grass. The next morning, Adaobi walked down that same path, sunlight kissing her face. She hummed softly, carrying a calabash of water balanced gracefully on her head. Each step was light, steady, and serene. Nothing strange happened. Her glow, instead of dimming, seemed brighter. The villagers who passed her even commented, "Ah, Adaobi shines like the morning sun today." By evening, however, disaster struck. It was not Adaobi who weakened, but Emeka, Nena's only son. He staggered into the compound, clutching his stomach. His body burned with fever so fierce that sweat poured like rain. His eyes rolled back and he collapsed on the earthen floor, gasping for breath. "Emeka, my son," Nena wailed, cradling him, but her soul quaked with dread. She knew something had gone terribly wrong. Obi rushed to his son's side, but before he could act, Adaobi had already flown into motion. She fetched cold water from the pot, wiped his burning body, and ran barefoot to summon the village healer. All night she stayed awake, cooling his skin with damp cloths, whispering encouragement, and forcing him to sip herbal mixtures. By dawn, Emeka's breathing steadied, his fever broke, and his trembling eased. His eyes opened faintly, and he gave the weakest of smiles before falling back into sleep. Obi stood watching from the doorway, his face heavy with sorrow. He turned on Nena, his voice quiet but cutting. "The one you curse is the one who saved your son. When will your eyes open? Envy is swallowing your soul." Nena could not answer. Shame clawed at her throat. That very night, unable to rest, she wrapped herself in a dark cloak and returned to the Dibia's shrine at the edge of the forest. The shrine smelled of smoke and dried blood, its walls painted with chalk and ash. The Dibia sat cross-legged before a fire, his eyes glowing faintly in the flickering light. "You returned so soon," he said, without looking up, his voice like dry leaves scratching stone. Nena fell to her knees. "The charm, it did not touch Adaobi. Instead, it struck my son. He almost died. Why? You promised me she would fall." The Dibia's laugh was hollow, mocking. "Woman, do you think the stars bend to your jealousy? That girl, Adaobi, carries a light beyond charms. Her mother's spirit guards her. Her path is woven by destiny itself. No darkness can cling to her." Nena's eyes widened, her breath quickened. "Then why my son? Why Emeka?" The Dibia leaned forward, his voice low, each word like a knife. "The charm recoils on the blood of the one who casts it, or upon those bound to them. Your hatred had no place to rest on Adaobi, so it turned on your child. That boy lived only because she, the very one you despise, gave him care through the night. Without her hands, without her strength, you would be mourning his body now." Nena's mouth went dry. The image of Adaobi bent over Emeka's sweating body flashed in her mind, and for a fleeting moment, guilt stung her heart. but pride smothered it. The Dibia's tone grew harsher. Woman, beware. Do not war against a destiny stronger than your own. If you persist, you will not only lose, but drag your children into ruin. Nana staggered back, her knees weak, but in her heart, jealousy still festered. She could not bear to imagine Adaobi rising higher, brighter, and one day becoming queen, while her own daughter faded into the background. As she stumbled into the night, the Dibia's warning echoed in her mind. Her star is untouchable. To fight it is to fight yourself. But Nana's heart was too clouded to listen. The prince's family arrived in full splendor, the entourage stretching far down the dusty road into Umuachala. The air was filled with the rhythmic beat of drums and the sharp cry of the Ogeni bell. Women ululated, children ran ahead of the procession, and men clapped their hands in the excitement. It was a wedding like none the village had seen in years. Wealthy visitors from neighboring towns arrived in fine garments, their gifts piled high, goats, wrappers, jewelry, and kegs of palm wine that seemed endless. Elders nodded with satisfaction, praising Obi for raising a daughter so blessed. On the day of the ceremony, Adaobi was adorned in coral beads and rich embroidered cloth that shimmered under the sun. Her beauty was radiant, but it was her calm grace that drew the most admiration. The villagers whispered among themselves, "Truly, her mother's spirit walks with her." The celebration lasted for days. Music filled the air, dancers spun in circles, and laughter rose from every corner. Plates overflowed with food, pounded yam, pepper soup, roasted meat, and steaming bowls of jollof. Cups were raised high, and wine flowed freely. When the final rites were performed, Adaobi left her father's compound and entered the palace gates as a bride. There, among marble pillars and golden lamps, she took her place beside Prince Kelechi. The girl once scorned by her stepmother now wore jewels, walked in silken wrappers, and was attended by maidens who bowed when she passed. The villagers rejoiced, singing her praises, proud that one of their own had become a queen in waiting. But far from the laughter and joy, Nena's heart burned hotter than ever. She watched with narrowed eyes as Adaobi rose higher, and though the drums of celebration still echoed through the land, envy had already begun to stir its restless claws.
Life in the palace was different from the quiet rhythm of the village. The walls were high, adorned with carvings of the ancestors. The courtyards were alive with laughter, and servants bustled about carrying trays of food and water. Adaobi adjusted quickly. Her gentle spirit won the hearts of the king's household, and her beauty made her a source of pride for the people. But far away in Obi's compound, Nena and Ngozi watched with bitterness gnawing at their souls. One hot afternoon, Ngozi paced before her mother, her brows knitted with anger. Why should Adaobi live in splendor while I remain here like a common villager? Am I not her equal in age? Am I not even more beautiful? Mama, I will not sit idle while she rises above us. Nena's eyes glinted with venom. She leaned close, her voice low and sharp. Then go to her. Insist on being her companion. Let her trust you. If you cannot take her place, then you must destroy her happiness from within. Ngozi's lips curved into a sly smile. That night, Ngozi wrapped her finest wrapper around her waist and went to Obi. Papa, I wish to live in the palace with my sister. She needs me there, and I cannot bear to be apart from her. But Obi, who had grown wiser from watching Nena's bitterness, shook his head firmly. No, Ngozi. The palace is not a place for games. Adaobi is the prince's wife, and you will respect that. Stay here. Even Prince Kelechi himself was uneasy when Adaobi later raised the matter. She had gone to him, her voice soft with compassion. My husband, my sister Ngozi has asked to join me in the palace. She says she wishes to help me. Kelechi's brow furrowed. He remembered too well the sharp glances of Nena and the forced smiles of Ngozi during the wedding feast. A strange heaviness always clouded the air around them. Adaobi, he said carefully, your kindness blinds you. That girl does not wish you well. I do not want her here. Adaobi bowed her head, respecting his words, but her heart wrestled with guilt. Ngozi was her sister after all. Later, she went to her father to seek his advice. Obi sighed deeply, his face worn with years of disappointment. Child, listen to your husband. Ngozi's heart is restless, and your stepmother's jealousy has poisoned her. The palace is a place of honor. Do not invite trouble into your home. But Adaobi, with her gentle heart, could not ignore Ngozi's pleas. She returned again to Kelechi. This time, she clasped his hand, her eyes shimmering. Please, my husband, let her come. If she lives close, perhaps her heart will change. I cannot turn her away. Kelechi loved his wife too deeply to deny her. Though unease coiled in his stomach, he finally agreed, but not without warning. If anything happens, if she brings trouble, I will cast her out myself. And so, Ngozi entered the palace smiling sweetly, pretending loyalty. She carried Adaobi's basket, followed her into the courtyard, and poured water into her basin. To the untrained eye, she looked every inch the devoted sister. But Kelechi was not deceived. He saw the way her eyes lingered too long on him, the way her laughter carried a strange edge, the way she slipped into corridors at odd hours, dressed in silks finer than her station. One evening, as the sun dipped low and the palace glowed in shades of amber, Ngozi made her move. She stepped into the prince's private chamber under the pretense of delivering a message, but she had chosen her garments with care, a wrapper tied loosely at her waist, her blouse low, her hair scented with fragrant oil. My prince, she whispered, lowering her eyes, you work so hard. A man like you deserves comfort, attention. Kelechi froze. His blood boiled with disgust. He stepped back, his jaw tight. Leave! Now! But Ngozi moves closer, her voice dripping with false sweetness. Why Adaobi? She is meek, soft. She cannot satisfy the desires of a man like you. Look at me. I am fire. I could give you more than she ever could. For a moment, Kelechi's hand trembled with the urge to strike her, but he caught himself. He was a prince, not a brute. His voice when it came was thunder. Shameless girl, do you think I am blind? Do you think I will betray my wife, the woman I love, for the likes of you? His anger filled the chamber like a storm. Ngozi staggered back, fear flashing in her eyes, yet she masked it with a smirk, bowing mockingly before fleeing the room. Kelechi remained standing for a long time, his fists clenched, his heart pounded, not from temptation, but from fury. He could not bring himself to tell Adaobi. Her gentle spirit would shatter if she knew her sister had sunk so low. He loved her too much to weigh her heart with such sorrow. Instead, he carried the secret in silence, his distrust of Ngozi deepening each day, while Adaobi, blissfully unaware, continued to treat her sister with kindness. But in the shadows, Ngozi's shame hardened into a darker resolve. If she could not win the prince, then she would destroy the woman who held him. Prince Kelechi loved his wife more than words could carry. To him, Adaobi was not only a woman of beauty, but of virtue, a wife whose kindness could soften stone. But in the back of his mind, a shadow lingered. The memory of Ngozi's shameless attempt to seduce him. He had never told Adaobi. How could he? Her heart was too gentle, too forgiving. To tell her would bring her sorrow, and he could not bear to see sadness cloud her radiant eyes. Instead, he kept his silence, but he resolved in secret to watch Ngozi closely. One evening, as he walked alone in the palace gardens, he summoned one of Adaobi's loyal maidens, a quiet girl named Ifunanya. Her eyes were sharp, her spirit trustworthy. Ifunanya, Kelechi said in a low voice, from this day, you will keep your gaze on Ngozi. Every step, every whisper, every shadow she lingers in, you must see it. Tell no one, not even your mistress. Do you understand? The maiden bowed. I understand, my prince. From that day, unseen to Adaobi, Ngozi's every move was shadowed. Months passed and joy filled the palace when it was announced that Adaobi was with child. The drums beat through the village, women sang songs of blessing and gifts poured in from all corners. The king beamed with pride, declaring feasts in honor of the unborn heir. Servants bustled about, preparing nourishing meals for Adaobi. The queen mother herself sent rare herbs for strength.
The palace courtyards echoed with laughter as everyone awaited the birth of a royal child. But where joy blossomed, envy withered into poison. Ngozi watched Adaobi's belly swell, each moon making her rival's glow brighter. She could no longer hide her bitterness. One night, Ngozi slipped away from the palace and returned to Obi's compound. She threw herself before her mother, her face twisted with rage. "Mama, it is hopeless. The prince does not even look at me. He loves Adaobi too much. I cannot bear this shame." Nena's heart hardened further, her envy burning hot. "Then if we cannot take her place, we will end her reign. If Adaobi dies, her star dies with her. And what better way than the same fate her mother met? Let her perish in childbirth, just as her mother did." Ngozi's eyes gleamed with dark hope. "Yes, Mama, let her child die too, so her name is cursed forever." But they needed a weapon. Nena, remembering how the first Dibia's charm had failed, sought another. She traveled far to a lonely grove where a dreaded Dibia was said to dwell. The air around his shrine was heavy with the stench of blood and decay. She fell to her knees before him, her wrapper dusty from the journey. "My son nearly died when another Dibia failed me. I seek power that will not miss its mark. My daughter's rival must die in childbirth." The old man laughed, a sound that slithered like a snake. "You women of envy, you gamble with destiny. Very well." He handed her a small gourd filled with black liquid. "Drop this into water. Whoever drinks it, or whose body it touches, will meet death. But beware, it must be used quickly, or its power will turn back on you." Nena took it with trembling hands. "It will be done." When the moon was high and the stars bright, Adaobi's time came. The palace grew tense with anticipation as her cries of labor echoed through the corridors. Women rushed in and out of her chamber bearing water and herbs. Drums beat softly outside to steady her spirit, while the prince paced her anxiously like a lion caged. After hours of labor, a loud cry pierced the night, not Adaobi's, but that of a newborn child. "A son!" the midwife proclaimed, lifting the baby high. "A strong, healthy boy!" The palace erupted in joy. Bells were rung, drums thundered, and shouts of praise filled the compound. The heir to the throne had been born. Prince Kelechi wept with relief, his chest swelling with pride and gratitude. But amid the rejoicing, Ngozi's heart was black with rage. That night, as the midwives busied themselves with tending Adaobi, she slipped silently into the birthing chamber, her hand clutching a calabash hiding under her wrapper. Inside, it swelled the dark poison her mother had brought from the Dibia.
She crept closer to the basin of water set beside Adaobi's bed, the water meant to bathe both mother and child. Her hand trembled as she uncorked the gourd and poured its contents in, whispering under her breath, "Let her die as her mother died. Let her star fall tonight." But Ifunanya, the loyal maiden, had been watching. From the shadows, her sharp eyes caught Ngozi's every move. At once, she sprang forward, seizing Ngozi's wrist. The calabash slipped, clattering to the ground as the black water spilled across the floor. "Guards!" Ifunanya cried out, her voice cutting through the night. "Guards, to the princess's chamber!" Within moments, armored guards stormed in. At the same time, other guards dragged Nena herself into the room. She had been caught sneaking toward the chamber with a dagger hidden in her wrapper. The room froze. Adaobi, weak but cradling her newborn son, looked on in shock as the truth unfolded. Prince Kelechi entered, his face dark with fury. He saw the spilled poison on the floor, Ngozi struggling against the guards, and his heart turned to stone. "So it is true. Your wickedness knows no bounds. First seduction, now murder. You would kill your own sister and an innocent child?" Ngozi fell to her knees weeping, while Nena's eyes burned with defiance, but it was too late. Their schemes had been exposed. "Take them away," the prince commanded, his voice cold as steel. "They will answer to the king." And as they were dragged from the chamber, Adaobi clutched her child close,
tears streaming down her cheeks, not only from joy at her son's birth, but from sorrow that envy had driven her own kin to such evil. The next day, the palace courtyard was filled. Elders, chiefs, villagers, all gathered to hear the verdict. Nena and Ngozi stood in chains, their heads bowed, their beauty wasted by fear. Prince Kelechi's voice rang out clear. They plotted to kill the princess and my son. Such treachery cannot be forgiven. Adaobi stepped forward, pale and weak but alive. Tears glistened in her eyes as she knelt. My husband, my prince, please, they are still my family. Spare them. Her plea was soft, but the chiefs shook their heads. The king raised his hand, and the prince's jaw tightened. The law is the law. They sought your blood and the blood of your child. Their punishment is death. Obi, standing among the crowd, wept openly. His heart was torn, his beloved daughter elevated, yet his wife and child condemned. Why, Nana? Why would you do this? He cried. But Nana only lowered her eyes, consumed by the weight of her own downfall. And so, by decree of the king, Nena and Ngozi were led away to their fate, to their death. Days later, though Adaobi's heart ached for her father's sorrow, she knew destiny had spoken. She had survived envy, hatred, and betrayal. She had walked through fire and emerged as princess, mother, and wife. Her brother, Emeka, often visited the palace. No longer the sickly boy who once lay at death's door because of his mother's failed charms, he grew into a strong and thoughtful young man. He admired his sister greatly, and whenever he walked through the palace gates, the servants welcomed him warmly, treating him as kin to their beloved princess and future queen. Adaobi cherished these visits, for they reminded her that family could still be a source of comfort and love. And so, Adaobi and the prince lived on in peace, their love unshaken, their bond unbreakable. Together, they watched their son grow, surrounded by loyalty and joy. Envy destroys, but destiny shines brighter than hatred.